Welcome to Earth Mom TV. Earth Mom TV is a show that's dedicated to Mother Earth and all things good. And today I am honored and so joyful to have as my guest Pearl Means, the wife of the late Russell Means, American Indian activist, actor, writer, musician. His list goes on and on. He really lived a life well lived and a life for his people. Pearl, I want to welcome you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
My good pleasure. I wanted to start with talking. You've worked as you've been his life partner, his wife, and you've also worked as Russell's business manager. And now in his transition to the spirit world, you are working on his legacy and carrying through projects that he had and working on some new projects as well. So perhaps you can give us maybe a little bit of an overview of his life, if you would.
Well, the interesting thing about Russell Means is that he was multifaceted, multi-talented, multi-gifted, and often it felt he was just a vehicle for a greater message, a voice. It was interesting to hear Chief Leonard Crodog, who was a very dear friend to my late husband, and he was part of the renaissance of the American Indian spirituality that was part and parcel to the heady day of the 70s with the American Indian movement, which is probably where a lot of people will remember and recognize Russell Means as part of the leadership of the American Indian movement. And what Chief Leonard Crodog said, and it really stuck with me, and I really began to ponder that. And over the past year, with this transition that we're all in, I've reflected more and more on the truth of that statement. And that is that Russell Means was a incredibly spiritual human being. It all came from the injustices that we were faced with as American Indian, as indigenous peoples, that caused Russell Means to become the great warrior that he's known as today. But again, back to my husband's work, he had a tremendous impact with the political reality of American Indians, the educational, and of course I already addressed the spiritual aspect of him and the American Indian movement's renaissance back to the forefront of our issues that plagued us then and we're still challenged with today. And then of course in the 90s, Michael Mann reached out to him and recognized, and from what I understand, based on the qualities that the producer Michael Mann saw in the leadership of the American Indian movement, Dennis Banks and Russell Means, he developed his character around that. And Russell fell in love with the arts, and it really opened a new door for him to express. He had a lot of energy, and he painted. He did a couple of CDs. He called it his Rapaho music. He had a beautiful sense of humor. And so I'm really grateful to Michael Mann for recognizing his ability and his talent as an actor. And of course, we all know him best in the classic Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was the voice in Pocahontas, and I was looking at his IMBDs, like in 24 different documentaries. The list goes on and on. It's big.
It's an incredible list, and he was fortunate enough, the last 8 months that he was with us, he did a feature film, which is out on the Film Fest circuit at this time. The title of it is Days and Nights, and it stars William Hurt, Katie Holmes, an all-star cast, Mark Rylance, and it's a remake of the Chekhov's play, The Seagull. So he did that, and then his very last project was a recurring character on Banshee, a cable series.
I haven't seen that. I want to check it out. How did you feel about doing Pocahontas?
He felt that was one of the finest pieces of work. He was very, very pleased and proud of Disney for embracing that, because he felt it really spoke to the matrilineal systems that we come from. The strength and the power of this young lady was incredible, because it was
Yeah.
based on a true story. And he really celebrated that. And at the same time, he was elated to put out there a role model for us as Indigenous women to see. He would have little girls come up to him in the airport, and they're carrying their Pocahontas suitcase and Pocahontas blanket.
Hmm.
And so that was a beautiful experience, and Disney treated him very well.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm always so touched by the song "Colors of the Wind" and the words. And when I just recall when Alan Menken and Stephen Schwartz went to receive their Academy Award for it, they thanked Chief Seattle, and basically the sentiments in that song so represent, pardon, so represent the feeling of love for Mother Earth, and caring for her. So that's good to know, and that's good, I guess, for all parents to show that DVD to your children, to honestly think about the love and respect of Mother Earth, and even the wise woman in the tree talking, they had the wise old woman, the young woman, but yeah, all of it. That's good. It's also amazing that by starting the one film, as you said, then the writing came out, then the music came out, it just blossomed.
It did. He really tapped into the creative energy. And as Indigenous peoples, because we're an oral society versus a literate society, we're trained at a very early age to develop both sides of the brain. We have to remember those stories. And as a result of that, we are known as phenomenal artists of all types.
You are. Yeah.
So that, I think that speaks to the societies that we come from, and our societies are based on balance.
With the male and female. I was looking at one YouTube of him, of Russell Means, and he was talking about actually singing to the child while the child's still in the womb, then singing and speaking. And, you hear that nowadays to do that to children, but you guys knew this all along. So that when the child comes out, the child is acclimated, the child knows those songs, has that heritage already. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. There are so many customs and ways that we have that really represent how to deal with all aspects of life. And I'm reminded of something that I have thought of each morning this past year as I'm going through the transition without him physically, is he often said, "Don't argue with life, deal with it." So, and thanks to our beautiful ways and our ceremonies, we have something that we call the year of mourning. And we take that year and we grieve. We grieve collectively as a family, as a community, then of course individually. And at the end of that year, we have what is known as a wiping of the tears ceremony. And it's very, very powerful, and it's very, very effective.
It's very healing.
And it's very healing. It allows us as a family and a community to come together and to release the spirit of the loved one, so that loved one can continue his or her journey. And as Chief Seattle so powerfully described it, it's simply a changing world.
Yeah, it's not the end by any means. Yeah, and that time for you would have been this past October 2013, because Russell left us in October of 2012, yeah.
That's correct. And what we did as a family is we established 4 ceremonies, 4 honorings throughout the year. 4 is a very sacred number for us as Indigenous peoples. The 4 directions, the 4 races of human.
Mm-hmm.
The 4 is a very powerful number, 4 ages of life, etc., etc. So it culminated in Denver, Colorado on the anniversary of his birthday, which was November 10th. And we had a 4-day program. And we were able to celebrate and look at all aspects of his life. It began with an art show. And one of Russell's most prized projects that he did a few years back is what he called the Indian Killer series. He took 12 alleged American heroes. He did their portraits, and then he developed narratives as to who they really were. And so much of what he did was considered controversial. So much of what he did was expose the truths and the values. And I see now with his work, he's forcing us to take a look at it, to make us think, to create dialogue. And that's all part of the healing process, is to step out of denial. Let's look at it, and then we can let go and move forward. So we got to examine his work, and that, I think, was one of his finest political, artistic statements, was that series. And I hope to take it on a traveling tour through universities throughout America. And then we also looked at his work in film. It just happened to coincide with the International Denver Film Fest. So we got to show a couple of his movies. And we also had an academic symposium that was hosted by University of Colorado at Denver. And we had several panels. One was his political work and his academic work. He was categorized as one of America's top 100 orators with the speech that he delivered at the Black Hills Alliance in 1980. And it was titled, "For the World to Live, Europe Must Die." And so we got to examine that and discuss that. I was very fortunate and honored to head a panel around the women's role in our societies, the matrilineal societies that 97% of us, Indigenous peoples, come from.
I'd really love to focus on that for a little bit, and the role today of men and women, because in some circles there's this idea that, men are going to be pushed out and the women are going to rule, but that isn't the case, is it?
No, it isn't. And thank you for asking, because we come from matrilineal social systems. And that's what the patriarch didn't realize. Our men have always been under attack, but the strength lies with the woman.
Yeah.
We give life. We come from a place of nurturing. We come from a place of love. And our systems were derived from the older women. Once we moved beyond childbearing years, we didn't have the hormonal fluctuation, and we had experienced life, given life. We could see life in a very, very broad spectrum. And typically, the older women were the ones that appointed and removed our leaders, our headsmen. And the patriarch talks about our great war chiefs. Well,
Who was behind them?
that was just one aspect of our society, and we refer to them as defenders. In fact, Another misnomer that Russell Means often spoke loudly and publicly about is the fact that we didn't come from warrior societies. We had our defenders that defended our people and our territory, but that was only one aspect of these systems that ensured balance. We took what we needed, we gave respect, everything was done with reverence. We recognized Grandmother the Earth as the giver of all of life, and all of our relatives, all of her children, the four-legged, the two-legged, the winged, the water, those that crawl and live within Grandmother the Earth, they're all adhering still to the Creator's original instructions. It's only human with the right to reason that has deviated. Therefore, we look to our relatives as teachers, as examples. And so it keeps human in a very humble place, a place of balance. Our men have their roles. We have gender roles culturally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we are able to respect one another's purpose, talents, and abilities. So when you have a relationship that's based on responsibility, respect, and love, nurturing, that's what was manifested to the Europeans when they first stepped foot on Turtle Island, is they described it as a paradise. They were in awe of the beauty because we only took what we needed. The concept of dominating, controlling, and eliminating is so foreign to us. Yeah. And as a result of it, we're at the last hour in terms of existence. And Grandmother the Earth is going to continue. She is a living organism. She is cleansing herself now. And we, all of us as life, to continue, will have to adhere to a more balanced world. And we need a paradigm shift. We need to approach life a little differently.
What has been said about that shift? Because we are in it. We are so in it. And is there, I hate to use the word, but is there a predicted outcome, or is it incumbent on all of us to make it every day and create the outcome that we would like to see, or collectively we'll be creating an outcome that we really don't want, but...
Well, there's so much that's unknown, and
it's a mystery.
As human, we have to do our part. We have to show up in a good way. We have to make a difference, and that is all levels of life. It's the way we think. It's the way we operate. It's the way we make choices. It's all, if we as individuals will take our responsibility, then we'll have a whole different world, one that's based on equality, one that's based on respect. And I can't say enough about the power of that word, respect. Respect and responsibility was what Russell Means' message was all about. If we all took that personal responsibility and respected our relatives' visions, we don't have to agree, and we recognize we all have a different experience. We're here for different reasons, but we have to respect our relatives' vision.
When you say respect our relatives' vision, what if it is the greed vision of more, taking Mother Earth's resources and using them? Are we respecting that type vision, or is it more respecting the good visions of people?
Well, we all have a moral compass.
Yeah.
That's where the responsibility comes into play. So Grandmother the Earth is going to do what she needs to do
Yeah,
to
she is.
cleanse.
She is,
And
and
she's
she's
doing
doing
it,
it.
and she's been doing it, and she'll
Yeah.
continue to do it. So we as life need to get within balance, or we won't be here. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. It is that clear, is it not? Yeah. You had mentioned that we are in the fifth world now. So do we still have like a leg in the fourth world and one in the fifth world, and we're just in this transition period between both, or have we moved to the fifth?
Well, it's a process. Everything in life is a
The process,
process.
yes.
And as indigenous peoples, we come from worlds. We are now moving into the fifth world. There's different levels
Okay.
within that. It is an ongoing process. But the powerful thing and the exciting thing about the fifth world is the energy. The energy is that of a higher vibration. It is what we call a female energy, which represents love, compassion, nurturing. And it resonates with so many of us. And I think a lot of us are starting to awaken to that.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't understand what's taking place, but it certainly is at the cellular level speaking to us. And again, we have that choice and that option, as we do, having free will, to move with it, to develop it, to work with it. And what happens is you just kind of tap into, you're thinking about something, and then it's there.
Mm-hmm.
That person calls, that opportunity presents itself.
Yes.
You know, the challenges aren't as unsurmountable as what we like to think.
Yeah.
We are in a position to create our realities, and we have to begin connecting our heart with our brain. And I think as indigenous peoples, that's what we've always been able to do. That's what we've always done. And when you're coming from that place of the heart, you're going to be going in the right direction. You know, intellectually, you can create anything you want, and it can be very convincing, and it can be very destructive, and we can justify it.
Oh, sure.
So the closer we stay to our heart, the better we are in terms of our individual personal lives as well as humanity, because it is a domino effect.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's why your message is so important. That's why I come to you. That's why I look to the indigenous people. You have the answers. You really do. Without romanticizing it or whatever, you understand Mother Earth. You've understand this for centuries. You know, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. You've known it. You know, some of us come up today. Oh, I have this answer, that book. You know, I'd read that book and it's going to change your life. But you've just known these things forever, and you know how to walk on Mother Earth and talk with her and take care of her properly, and it's so important. It really is.
Well, it's a matter of survival, and like I said, because matrilineal systems are not the flip side. Matriarchy is not the flip side of the coin of patriarchy. Women do not rule. It's that we have our power. We have what we can't define, what we can't always describe. It's what we feel. It's a knowingness. And we call it our female power. And that in our societies is respected. It's highly revered. And so the more we stay in touch with it, the more it's developed, and we can utilize it, and it directs us in many, many ways, shapes and forms. So I feel very, very honored to come from these ancient societies where we have ways of coming into balance. You hear so often, the Plains Indians have several beautiful ceremonies, one being the Inipi, which is crassly described as a sweat lodge. But
Kind of crass, isn't it?
yeah, it's a purification lodge.
Because, yeah, it's
And the whole intent of that is to come into, to be able to purify. See, as women, we purify naturally every 28
monthly.
days.
Yeah.
So the male recognizes this in our primitive societies. And so they perform this ceremony to purify the best that they can. And incidentally, with the Lakota people, which is what my husband was, is they have 7 sacred ceremonies. And it was given to them by a female entity known as the White Buffalo Calf Woman. And one of these sacred ceremonies is the Sundance. And you hear so much about it. It's celebrated all over the world, and they're going on all over the world. But the intent and purpose is really to come into balance with the female once again.
Really?
It's a process of going 4 days, dancing, fasting, no food or water for 4 days. And it's to give the male a glimpse of what we as women go through during the 9 months of pregnancy. And then it culminates with the tearing of the flesh, which is representative of giving birth. So again, it's a renewal ceremony for us and for the people, and so that the people will continue to live and with less suffering. So it's really a beautiful, powerful ceremony. But again, as primitive peoples, we had ways to stay in balance with one another, and I'm just so proud of that.
If you want to find out more, go to the website. Pearl Means is carrying on the legacy of Russell Means, her late husband, and it is russellmeanslegacy.com. I thank you so very much, and I hope this show has gone to your heart, and I hope it's just going to make you love and respect Mother Earth all the more for the work that, and be very grateful for the work that Pearl Means is doing, and for the work that Russell Means did and has left us with, and the work that continues from him. Thank you very much.